The light is green. I'm John Taylor, and I'm the Episcopal Bishop here in Los Angeles. On behalf of all of our colleagues, I welcome you to St. Paul's Commons for this historic act of forming unity across and among all faiths. We gather this morning in the memory and in the spirit of our friend Umar Hakeim Day. Let's give it up for Umar. Our planners have scheduled a video about Umar later in the program. He was, I am proud to say, launched by us Episcopalians. He was a Muslim, an activist, and a unifier who served as chair of LA Voice, those wonderful faith-based organizers. And most of all, our sibling Umar was a lover of humanity and of creation. Many friends of Umar fashioned this event, especially Rebecca Husseini, Salam al-Marayati, Lo Sprague, Bob Williams, Connie Rice, Mike Downing, Victor Leang, Kirkpatrick Tyler, Jackie DuPont Walker, Susan Goldberg, and Niranjan Singh Khosla. Also helping inestimably were LA City Attorney Heidi Feldstein Soto and DA Nathan Hotchman. And I'm pleased to say that representing the Chief of Police, we have Chief Herman Hurtado aboard. Welcome, Chief. It's good to have you with us, sir. I was in a small group discussion with Umar once, and Umar wanted to begin with what we agreed on already. Today's speakers and audience express many faiths. This is Los Angeles. This is the most diverse city in the world. We have our doctrines, we have our differences, we have our histories of holy wars. But we agree on one thing. We agree on the golden rule. The golden rule teaches that we do to others only what we would have them do to us. As an Abrahamic practitioner, my faith is that God wrote the law in my heart. I remember Jesus saying that every word of the Bible that he inherited in his time added up to the golden rule. But we didn't invent it. We have the golden rule from Confucius, 500 years before Christ. If I were a secular philosopher, I could find my way to the golden rule without any reference to faith. As an evolutionary biologist, I would suspect that it was written on our DNA. As an astrophysicist, I might see the universe suspended in exquisite balance and mutuality because of the golden rule baked into all things at the beginning of all things. And the golden rule says we always think of the impact of our actions on our neighbor. Even when we're protecting ourselves, we do no harm that we don't have to do. We never engage in cruelty for cruelty's sake. Without the golden rule, we can't have a happy home. We can't survive 5 minutes on the 405 during rush hour. The golden rule is the divine law of the universe. It's the only thing that works. It applies to everyone and everything, except until now, our politicians and our all-powerful national leaders commanding the power of life and death over all creation. The golden rule has always ruled out cruelty for cruelty's sake. And yet this government we have makes a religion out of cruelty. It has killed 130 men of color on the high seas without cause, without due process, including those floating helplessly in the wreckage, begging to be saved. It kills peaceful demonstrators in Minneapolis and tries to evade accountability. It sends our volunteers into an illegal, unnecessary, stupid war. It brags about jettisoning rules of engagement in wartime. It makes a joke out of torpedoing an Iranian frigate with a military band aboard that threatened no one. It bombs a girls' school, and it lies about it. Borrowing the words of the Johnny Cash song, they're killing people just to watch them die. In the face of these outrages, Umar's spirit is asking us what we agree on. Now, the golden rule is a very low bar. It is neither Democratic nor Republican. It is neither liberal nor conservative. We can have secure borders without official cruelty. Chief, we can police our neighborhoods as you do without cruelty. We can protect our national interests. We can interdict drugs without cruelty. We can deepen our understanding of our trans and non-binary neighbors, while in the meantime never cruelly denying their humanity. Now, you might say that even an abstract public policy can be cruel, a tax can be cruel, a budget cut can be cruel, but you understand the distinction I'm making. Those in power are intentionally desensitizing us to sadistic acts of state violence, especially against people of color. They fear they can't stay in power without it. So our work, in the practical spirit of Umar, is putting them out of power. We have tens of millions of people of faith in our region, 160 million in our country. They need to be organized around the universal law of love. Many of us grew up with the golden rule on classroom walls. We all have it in our hearts. We know the instant we've done something we shouldn't do. So if good and faithful people look at what's going on in our country and what our country is doing in the world, and they think it's okay for power to do what it shouldn't do, it's because false teachers have seduced them into thinking that the golden rule can be applied selectively. That's where faith leaders and teachers and practitioners come in. You can believe what you want about politics, but when it comes to official cruelty, the golden rule has no exceptions, no amendments, no exclusions, no codicils. We sometimes debate about whether events such as this and the organizations that host them are interfaith or multi-faith. We've all been invited to sign a magnificent multi-faith testament this morning. My friends, we are all faith. Missing from public life today is a distinct, unified expression of our core principles. So I propose we need an all-faith democratic union. Its vision statement would be to hold power accountable to the golden rule to the extent that it rules out acts of unnecessary violence and cruelty for cruelty's sake. The mission of an all-faith democratic union would be to identify politicians who are in violation, organize against them, crush them peacefully at the polls, and send them home to see if they can learn some manners. If anyone suggests this violates the separation of church and state, they are wrong. The Establishment Clause of the First Amendment protects people from their government. It does not protect government from the decent, godly values of the people. When we're hesitant about stepping into the public square, it's usually because we are being diplomatic and cautious. The age of Trump is no time for diplomacy and caution, because we are being escorted, my friends, step by step toward the gates of hell. For heaven's sake, it's time to stand in the breach in the name of the universal law of love. So I bid you welcome and invite our beloved friend, Dr. Lowe Sprague of the Guibord Center, to lead us in our multi-faith expression.
Thank you, Bishop John, for those amazing and powerful words this morning. We gather this morning in a world that is barraged by a cacophony of cruelty. we come together as people of faith and goodwill, seeking ways to cope with and turn back the barrage of brutality that has engulfed us. It is hard, especially hard, for good people to know how to fight back against the forces of oppression. We are stunned by those who act to maximize harm, to strategically cripple and poison simple human kindness in their pursuit of power. As people of faith, we have often been slow to respond because of our confusion about what to do, about what we can do, behind the barrier of honoring the separation of church and state. James Tallarico, Texas politician and self-proclaimed man of God, recently shattered that paralysis by saying, "Politics is about how we treat our neighbors." There is the part of politics that is about partisan gamesmanship that we can easily stay clear of. But when it comes to our neighbors, every faith has a code of ethics about hospitality, about how to treat the stranger, how to treat one another. Some call it the Golden Rule. It is the only piece of gold missing from our White House. We gather today among people representing the many faiths of Los Angeles to learn what we can do to honor and protect the sanctity of our neighbors and ourselves. We open this morning being blessed by a tiny sample of those representatives.
The shofar has many purposes. It calls us to be gathered together. It calls us to be awakened. We sound the shofar as a Jewish people for the month before our holiest days of reflection and repentance. And it is literally an alarm. It jars your soul. It wakes you and cries out to you to look inside of yourself, to figure out the areas that you need to do repair, you need to do change. Today, I ask that this alarm wake us to all that is good in our souls, that teach us what it means to love our neighbor. We are taught to love our neighbor like ourselves, Leviticus 19:18, and you got to know yourself so you can help your neighbor. May it be an alarm to step up. May it be an alarm to say, gather with others, those that look like you, those that don't look like you, and together protect our neighbors, be alarmed and awakened, and step forward and step up in this moment.
Good morning. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله. Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Otherwise, good morning. Hi, how's it going? My name is Mohammed. I'm very honored to be here on behalf of the Muslim Public Affairs Council and to share just a couple of words, especially as we enter into the last 10 days of Ramadan, the holy month of Islam, in which the Quran was first revealed. Ramadan is about a lot of things. Of course, it begins with fasting and abstaining from any kind of food, water, and to the chagrin of most professionals, coffee as well. But more than anything, it is about recognizing the importance of community, the importance of coming together. As the Quran says, وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا. And they give food out of love for him, the prisoner, the orphan, and the poor. The idea that in Ramadan, it does not matter who you are. It does not matter what Lord you worship, what prayer you make, or what language that you speak. What matters at the end of the day is that we are all human beings. We are all creations of one Creator. We all suffer the same oppressions, the same injustices, and we all pursue the same justices and the same freedoms. And in a country like the United States and in a beautiful city like Los Angeles, in what I think is the greatest state of the United States, like California, that diversity is our strength. That diversity is what makes us powerful, what makes us more God-conscious, what makes us more united in our pursuit of justice and freedom for everybody, so that we can finally accomplish the actual ideas enshrined in the Declaration of Independence, in the pursuit of happiness, in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as well. Thank you all so much for having me, and it's an honor to be here with you all. Assalamu alaikum.
Let us worship and fall down before him. Good morning. I'm Father Alexei. I'm the Ecumenical and Interreligious Officer for the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Los Angeles. The undergrounding pinning, the foundational stone, if you will, of all Catholic social justice teaching is the inherent dignity of each and every individual. That inherent dignity is being severely violated today, and that's why we're here. Thank you.
Sahana vavatu, sahano bhunaktu, sahaviryang karavavai, tejasvina viditamastumma vidvishavahai. This is one of the most ancient prayers of Hinduism from our Vedic tradition. Oh, may we be protected together, may we be nourished together, may we work together with great vigor, may what we learn shine forth in our lives, may love and harmony be with us all. Om Shanti, 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 peace, peace, peace be unto us all and all living creatures. In Hinduism, we too have the golden rule. In the Mahabharata, we read, "This is the sum of all dharma. Don't do to others that would cause pain if it was done to you."
एक ओंकार सतनाम कर्ता पुरख निरपौ निर्वैर अकाल मूरत अजूनी सैभंग गुरप्रसाद जप सतनाम वाहिगुरु. In the Sikh faith, our gurus taught us to see the divine light in every human being. Guru Nanak, the founder of the Sikh faith, said, Na ko bairo nahi begana, sagal sang hamko ban ai. No one is my enemy. No one is a stranger. I belong to all, and all belong to me. When we see the divine light in every individual, in every human being, we naturally treat them with compassion, love, dignity, empathy. And I feel like right now we are missing it all. So we have to get back to it.
Dukkha patta chani dukkha, bhaya patta chani bhaya, soka patta chani soka, hontu sabbe pipanino. May the suffering be free from suffering. May the fear be free from fear. May the sad be free from sadness. May all beings attain final freedom. I'm Bhante Chauchu from Los Angeles Buddhist Union. In Buddhist text, there is a story. A king asked the queen, is there anyone in the world whom you love more than yourself? She then replied with no, and asked the king the same question. The king's reply was no. There's no one I love more than myself. After the king told the story, the Buddha said, having gone in all directions, I say that no one can be found who is loved more than oneself. Everyone loves themselves. Therefore, one who cares for oneself should not harm another. I love myself and want a safe and secure life. And you all love yourselves and do not want to suffer. So, we also want safe and secure environments. We have to be mindful of our actions. May all beings be well and happy.
Allah means in Arabic the glory of God. And it's not really a part of ritual in the Baha'i faith. But if you were to go to Baha'i meetings, you might hear people chanting that little song. And I want to thank Bishop Taylor for talking about the Golden Rule, that I believe all faiths are a part of the Golden Rule. They have it in their religious writings, phrased slightly differently, but meaning the same thing. Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. In the Baha'i faith, the prophet, founder of the Baha'i faith, said that the earth is but one country and mankind its citizens, that we're all a part of the same species. We're all human. We all have souls, and we all have rights. We all have human rights. So to be a part of a multi-faith response is something that every Baha'i would like to be a part of. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Let me ask any of you who are faith leaders here in the room, would you please join us in standing? Would you please stand if you're a faith leader? We are truly all in this together. Thank you. Okay, be seated. As we're queuing up the video, can I bring back the faith leaders for a photo? Well, he's queuing it up.
Thank you, Lo. Thank you, Bishop Taylor, for those wonderful words. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We want to play one video before we start the remarks, and it's a video in dedication of the person really who started this whole process of bringing security to our community in a way that builds bonds of friendship and mutual accountability. And it was done by Umar Hakeim. And Umar passed away some months ago. I have to tell you, though, before he passed away, he made a trip to Mecca. And so it was in a way, it was a way of God calling him back. And he left. He was only 54 years old, but he did a lot in the time that he was here. He was Episcopalian, as Bishop Taylor said, and he became Muslim years after that, and he was a leader in the Muslim community, and he brought communities together. And so we're going to play a video in honor of Umar Hakeim.
Umar Hakeim, a servant of God, a leader among people, smiling as a part of his charity. He followed entrepreneurial ambitions for the betterment of community. He worked on MPAC's human security program to provide freedom to the people as part of our collective security. Freedom of worship, freedom of expression, freedom from fear, and freedom from want. His work was recognized by the city of Los Angeles, but he never forgot his community. In fact, he believed power can only be attained through community. A perpetual thinker, reflecting on our challenges and opportunities. He made it to Mecca this year, calling on God just before God called him back. Umar believed that God has a plan for everything, and our task is to read his signs in the Quran and throughout life to comply with God's will. He believed in strong family. He believed in laughter, enjoying Hajj simulation with kids, being a pilot for our lives. His interfaith work was about mutual understanding and joint action, seeing religion as a means to unite us, not divide us, if we would only follow the principles of our respective faiths. Umar inspired us to be the better part of ourselves, inspiring us for change, first by purifying our hearts, clearing our minds, and remaining steadfast. God does not change the condition of a people until they change what is in themselves. He changed conditions by offering hope and creating possibilities. For denying hope is denying God. He gave hope to his children, to his family, to his community, and to society. Umar Hakeim, 1970 to 2025. We enjoyed the time you had with all of us. We love you. We miss you. A servant of the people, a servant of God. He lived the true meaning of leadership, service. Until we meet again, Brother Omar, when God wills. To God we belong, and to him we shall all return.
And in many ways, Omar is passing the baton to us today, so we carry that baton with pride and with responsibility. Bishop Taylor talked about the Golden Rule. I think this forum is also about what brings all these religions together and the purpose of religion. And that purpose of religion is to build a covenant with your Creator, a covenant between people, a covenant between the ruled and the rulers. And we believe in a covenant based on the rule of law. That is what our religion teaches us. And that is what the Constitution establishes as well. However, the rule of law has changed to might makes right. And government now instills more fear than confidence. The Constitution is being ignored, is being disobeyed, actually. When the Congress itself decides not to have a hearing and not take a vote on whether it should or should not declare war, that means we're moving away from the Constitution. Because those words are simply in plain sight when we read the Constitution. We see the militarization of American cities, people disappearing. My family, along with millions of Americans, have family members who disappeared from lands where they fled. And now we see it happening in America. And with this war, you're going to see more erosion of civil liberties. There was a congressman who said yesterday, we can change the First Amendment so that Islam is not a religion. And other congressmen have said, you know, Muslim mainstream have declared war on us, so we should declare war on Muslims and destroy all of them. This is happening in the House of Representatives, in the people's house. Ronald Reagan said, you can live in Turkey, but you cannot become a Turk. You can go live in Japan, but you cannot become Japanese. But anyone from any corner of the world can come to America and become an American. Even this Republican who said these words based on his understanding of the Constitution, his words, unfortunately, are eroding to this day. And that is why this is a nonpartisan event. This is not to say the Republicans are bad and the Democrats are good, or vice versa. We believe that both parties really have not met the principles in upholding the Constitution. And therefore, we should take it back to the people. That is why we're having this forum, to discuss the constitutional crisis, what the multi-faith response should be, and then take actions after that. I was here when I started, actually, in 1986, 40 years ago. One of the first cases I dealt with was the LA 8. I don't know if some of you remember the LA 8. And that was a case where the government tried to use a McCarthy law called the McCarran-Walter Act by deporting 8 Palestinians and a Kenyan woman because they had literature that was going against the United States. Same thing happened just a few years ago, trying to deport somebody for literature that the government found a threat to the interests of the United States. We're going to see more laws like that passed that are unconstitutional, and that is why we are gathered here together to say no to might make right, and yes to the rule of law, yes to the covenant, and that covenant for all of us is the United States Constitution. So with that, I'd like to welcome our first speaker, and she's well known in our circles, and Connie Rice is a nationally acclaimed lawyer whose class action cases with NAACP Legal Defense Fund and her own law firm include the largest civil rights settlement in U.S. history and total over $10 billion in damages and policy changes. In 2014, President Barack Obama appointed Rice to his president's task force on 21st century policing for her expertise in gangs and American policing. Former LAPD Chief of Police Charlie Beck, whom Rice repeatedly sued before becoming an ally, called her the conscience of Los Angeles. Rice says of her work, "We owe a debt to everyone who fought and died for our freedoms. It is a privilege to pay that forward and a duty to protect their sacrifice." Please welcome Connie Rice.
Salam, thank you for that introduction, but even more so for 25 years of your steadfast leadership. For 25 years, thank you. Thanks to Umar for his vision, to Bishop Taylor for giving the keynote that I don't need to give, and for hosting us. Low, brilliant, gold everywhere. I've got to get that line. It was brilliant, brilliant. And to this multi-faith alliance for this gathering. I'm the secular interloper who feels completely unqualified to be addressing you, but even a secular interloper can hear the divine and see the secular. And every speaker before me delivered both. I thank you for that gift. It's such a distinct honor to be with so many distinguished leaders of faith and civics. I want to start with why you in this gathering matter, with something that my fiercest grandmother once said to me. She was stirring cake batter, and I made the mistake of complaining about something Ronald Reagan had done. She slapped that spatula down on the counter and she said, "Until you've had to sit in the dark in your Birmingham, Alabama kitchen waiting for the Klan, you have not earned the right to complain. Justice is a relay. Take that damn baton and run like the wind." Okay, I come by it honestly. This gathering, as each speaker before me, has melded the divine with the duty to make God's law, to make the golden rule run our politics. This gathering looks to take the baton from past faith coalitions that stepped up to demand human freedom in their time. And that history, which you know much better than I, shows clearly one thing: faith can move mountains. I don't have to have it to know that faith can move mountains. And when it fuels strategic movements of nonviolent action, faith can also move nations and change history. From the anti-slavery coalitions of Quakers, Protestants, Catholics, and yes, a few Jews and Muslims, to the black church networks, white Christians, and rabbis that co-led the 60s civil rights revolution, to today's religious leaders from every faith who joined thousands in city streets to challenge masked barbarism. Make no mistake, multi-faith doctrines fueled each of these moral campaigns and formed the foundation of the greatest human liberation strategy of the 20th century. Mahatma Gandhi trained Hindus, drew from Jainism's fervent dedication to truth and nonviolence, from Islam's reverence for peace and humble service, from Buddhism's profound devotion to compassion and humanity, from Judaism's world-transforming traditions of tikkun olam and rigorous spiritual debate, and from Christianity's principles of radical love and sacrifice. Even a secular understands what your faiths bring. And if I've left any of them out, anybody who is up here at this one, I salute you as well. You create the foundation, just as Mahatma Gandhi did. He melded these and other love-based traditions into a nonviolent strategy that he called Truth Force. Wielding Truth Force, he led a movement of nonviolent disruption so morally powerful, it ended empire in India. And when Mahatma Gandhi shared his stealth weapon of mass moral subduction with the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the Reverend James Lawson, they trained and deployed the disciplined, all-faith army that peacefully killed Jim Crow apartheid in the United States. That's what this speech is about. But let's be clear. You know this history better than I do. This moment, where are we? In this moment, as the new Manzanar detention camps go up, you know democracy is in the crosshairs and nothing less than American freedom is at stake. We either act now or forever hold our chains. A blind mole rat can see that every pillar of constitutional democracy is under concerted attack by the federal administration and that it has unleashed a massive, violent paramilitary force to silence us and beat us into compliance. Folks, nation-state violence to force submission to tyranny is the very definition of fascism. And in case you're thinking this is finally proof that I am nuts, think again. The Wall Street Journal declared yesterday on page 11 of the print edition, because I'm old school, I read the print. Quote, Wall Street Journal, remember, the Department of Homeland Security, created in 2002 to protect Americans, has turned its force against American citizens, close quote. Now, when the Wall Street Journal sounds like Connie Rice, what else do you need to know? When against court orders, the federal government inflicts state force to unconstitutionally abduct, summarily deport, torture, terrorize, and kill law-abiding immigrants and American citizens, the very tyranny our Constitution was created to end is in our living room. In short, wake up and smell the bear spray. What do? How do we defeat autocracy? Douse the tiki torches of hate and reignite Lady Liberty's torch for hope and freedom? We've been here before and know what to do. We know what to do with the American seesaw of 1 step forward, 10 back. We are where King was 1 week before his assassination when he told Harry Belafonte, Harry, I fear we are fighting to join a democracy that is a burning house, engulfed in flames of injustice. Belafonte asked, then Martin, what the hell is it that we must do? King replied, we must become firemen. Today, I would add that we also must become architects and builders of e pluribus unum democracy. In a fourth founding of American democracy, out of the ashes, we must build and fight for a rule of law democracy that radically reconstructs society to put human well-being first, end necro-capitalism that kills people, put universal opportunity, shared prosperity, and upward mobility at its core, exactly as your brilliant multi-faith declaration for constitutional renewal does. We must engage a values revolution, turbocharge the safety net instead of shredding it, reassure fairness to all, no matter the majority, offer a constitution that adds basic rights to things like safety, shelter. Guess what, folks? First Amendment is something that aristocrats who owned land and slaves would start with. Dead people don't speak. Hungry children don't learn, okay? Let's add the basic rights they left out to things like shelter, the right to vote, federally, right to vote. You think you have a federal right to vote? You're wrong, you don't. Healthcare, food, shelter, education, privacy, gender equality, an entirely new framework, racial justice, civil rights, environmental protection, and an end to money as speech because we are on plutocracy's doorstep. I definitely don't have all the answers, not even most of them. And this panel that's coming up and this audience will have much better ideas. But in addition to a new blueprint for pluralist democracy, to jumpstart the discussion, I offer these suggestions humbly because many of them you are all likely already doing, and some of which may give you pause and should be left for others. First, get power back. The midterms are do or die. It's not about party. It's about the vision of a pluralist democracy where everybody belongs. 2, write a Project 2028 blueprint that restores what Project 2025 autocrats have destroyed. Make sure it blocks every path to relaunch autocracy. We know how to plug it. Stop doing these half measures. Effective nonviolent resistance requires extensive training and discipline. Consider creating the Gandhi Lawson Nonviolent Resistance and Tech Disruption Training Center to give protesters today's skills that are needed. We are going to have to defend and become vigilant to defend constitutional democracy from here on out and throughout everybody. I won't be here. I'm not going to be here that long. I've earned every white hair on my head, and I'm tired, okay? Young people are going to take the way. You have got to remain vigilant, and you've got to get the skills, but you've got to update them. 4, especially for this gathering, more publicly defend the integrity of your faiths and challenge the abuse of faith. Just as violent extremists perverted Islam to wage terrorism, white Christian nationalism wields Christianity as a weapon of hate. It dismissed, listen to this, it dismissed the Sermon on the Mount as woke and called the Good Samaritan stupid. Loud rebuttal. I'm not of any faith, but I need to hear the defense of faith. I need to hear what I heard this morning from every brilliant speaker and everybody else who didn't speak, but I know I have heard, okay? 4, fund the lawyers like Victor Leang of the ACLU, Mark Elias, and others battling autocracy in the courts. Thank you, Victor. And fund the students and grassroots groups that are taking it to the streets. Don't wait for the midterms. Continue nonviolently challenging ICE and opposing ongoing transgressions. 6, rally philanthropy to fund a multi-faith democracy action network. Bishop, what did you call it? An all-faith democracy union? All-faith democratic union. Foundations need to fund it. 7, don't wait for the court cases. It's too late if you have to file an action. Preempt the extreme plans to subvert the midterms. And I'm going to give you some specifics here. Ensure politicians block the SAVE Act that will eliminate mail voting and disqualify millions of registered voters, including married women who have changed their names and they're not the same on their birth certificates. Understand that. They don't want us, half of them think that the women voting was a mistake. Stop voter purges with Doge's stolen data. They stole that data. It wasn't about fraud and efficiency. They were stealing data to be able to do the surveillance state. Proactively get independent monitors and rules that block vote nullification and decertification. You got to get the rules in place now. Spike strip plans for military seizure of ballot boxes, that's on their agenda. Defang the sleeper cells of election deniers in state election offices. Arm voters and train them with the information they need to cast and protect their counted ballots. Every stage they're trying to undo what we say. And publicize Speaker Johnson's Hail Mary crazy plan to refuse to swear in and seat elected Democratic officials. Even if we win, he plans not to swear them in, like he did that Arizona legislator, remember? Okay? Preempt. Get the rules in place now. 8, to rebuild credibility with voters who have turned to this madness we see. We have to admit we and the politicians we elected co-created reverse Robin Hood. We have to repent for it and offer big but achievable antidotes. We are in this mess in part because both parties created reverse Robin Hood that wildly enriched the top 1% based on money funneled from the middle class, created downward mobility for the bottom 40%, and mass incarceration destitution for the bottom 15%. Voters need to see we understand our role in this mess and why we are the ones to help fix it. And for the love of Mary, please tell your politicians to stop chanting affordability like it's a magic wand. Without specific remedies that can succeed, it's just another empty talking point. Besides, it's not just about affordability. It's the leaders following their folks and following polling. It's not just affordability, it's livability, viability, and most importantly, upward mobility. 10, stop sending brain cancer to the beauty shop, please. Show that democratically run government can deliver, actually solve problems, and be fiscally responsible. Dems often, they tinker, they talk, they take pictures, and they run for the next office, not having solved a damn thing. We're very good at offering soaring rhetoric, and then we then we do safe 2% solutions that solve nothing. Voters have to see real progress and solutions, or this democracy is over. It's why they turn to the madness we see. Make wealth pay its fair share and change federal priorities from tomahawks to teachers, but also stop the tax and spend crap. Don't ask middle-class voters for another dime. LA County, for example, has $40 billion. If you can't solve problems with that amount of money, go home. Finally, editing James Carville, it's the winning, stupid. Stop bringing casseroles to a knife fight. Get practical, strategic, and we have to win so big their sabotage fails. These are just a few ideas in this 10 minutes, trying to move us beyond the current boxes. You're way ahead of me. I've been away taking care of my sick brother, and you have leapfrogged way ahead, so I'm sorry that if I'm repeating things you've already done. In conclusion, we are not going back, not to backs of buses, not to the back of the line, not back to Mexico, not back to Manzanar, not back to Muslim bans, not back to yellow stars of David, not back in the closet, not back to Chinese exclusion acts, not back to broken treaties, and not back to the back alleys where women and girls die. We will win this war because we must, because our ancestors demand that we do. I will end with two inspirational quotes from the prophet of multiracial democracy, Martin Luther King Jr. Quote, "We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. We still have a choice, nonviolent coexistence or violent co-annihilation. This may well be our last chance to choose between chaos and community." Close quote. And from the great Justice Thurgood Marshall, quote, "In the chill climate in which we live, we must go against the prevailing wind, dissent mightily, because America has no choice but to get better. We can run from each other, but we cannot escape each other. Knock down the fences that divide, tear apart the walls that imprison. Reach out, freedom lies just the other side." Ladies and gentlemen, as my grandmother commanded, it's time to fight like dragons and run like the wind. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, thank you. I do need help.
That was magnificent. It's an honor to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. After your talk, I feel like I have to pay a tithing for that wonderful, inspirational speech, or I got something free of tuition with all the education that you provided all of us. So thank you for always breaking it down in your special way. Our next speaker is a personal friend of mine, a friend for the last 20-some years. He was deputy chief and interim chief of Los Angeles Police Department. He believed in community partnerships. And after 9/11 was a very difficult time for all of us, of course. We had to deal with the federal policies that were coming down, and there was definitely an infringement of civil liberties throughout our communities. But Mike Downing worked within the system to ensure civil liberties for communities. And he and I partnered on several things. He and I actually disagreed on several things. And there were some hard feelings over it. But we always came back to the table. We maintained our friendship, and we maintained our partnership. And I owe a lot to him for being with us and being here today. He is a leader in building trust with communities and a consistent voice for the responsible and constitutional use of state authority. Mike Downing's extensive 35 years of experience includes serving with the Los Angeles Police Department and commanding officer of the department's Counterterrorism and Special Operations Bureau, where he led 5 operational divisions. Please welcome Deputy Chief Mike Downing. Former.
Well, good morning, everyone. And Salam, you're a great friend, probably one of my best partners. We did disagree on a few things, but we were never disagreeable. But I am mad at you right now because I feel wholly unqualified to stand on the same stage as Connie Rice. And you kind of set me up. So so bear with me. I speak as a common man, as a common citizen. I don't speak on behalf of the Los Angeles Police Department. That was a wonderful time in my career with challenges and obstacles, but I've been in the private sector, and I still am, and I've been gone for 9 years. But I still felt this tug at my heart to be a citizen and to participate and to observe what's going on in the world, and shockingly. And so sometimes I write essays just to kind of get it off my chest and share with my friends on my feelings. And so after events occurred, I wrote an essay about what I'm going to tell you about right now. And probably the theme was, there is a price to pay for speaking the truth, but there's a bigger price to pay for living a lie. And that was by Cornel West. So my father died a week before Thanksgiving. He spent his life in public service. He was a deputy chief on LAPD even before I came on the job. He was a television writer and a producer and a showrunner and a prolific chronicler of the human condition. And in his later years, he, like me, thought it important to, as a common man, to be a citizen and be an observant citizen and find a way to participate in our democracy. And even in his last weeks, he was still writing. He was 87 years old. He was still writing, trying to determine where the world was headed. And he and I spoke every day. In his final Substack essay, he warned of a dangerous slippage, that the doctrine of government practices at sea, where it felt unaccountable, is the rehearsal for violence at home. Once a president learns that he can kill without due process abroad, he wrote, the temptation to do it on U.S. soil follows close behind. And less than 2 months later, after he wrote this article, the nightmare he described and arrived with a clarity too terrible to ignore. And this probably was the worst thing that I've observed since I've been gone for 9 years on Los Angeles Police Department. When Renee Nicole Good and Alex Preddy were shot and killed by ICE, what followed was not only the taking of life, but the swift re-engineering of truth. I watched both cases. As a commanding officer of counterterrorism special operation, I probably reviewed and made judgments on thousands of use of force cases. Officials labeled them violent domestic terrorists. I was the commanding officer of Counterterrorism Special Operations Bureau for 10 years. I know the definition of terrorism. I know what it is. They were not domestic terrorists. There was not violence targeted at innocent civilians to further a political agenda. Federal accounts insisted on facts that footage contradicted. What was captured on video, gestures, angles, the tempo of events, undercut the official narration. The cameras recorded one reality, the custodians of power insisted on another. The message was implicit and corrosive, and basically it was, don't trust your eyes, trust us. The inversion of sight and word, witness and authority is what I mean when we say we are living within a lie. And that is hard for me to do. I was a public servant. I still love the Los Angeles Police Department and the community, the Los Angeles community. I've always believed that the diversity is our strength. The faith, the food, the fashion, the music, the ideas, the participation. That has always been our strength. But this inversion of sight and word, witness and authority is what I mean when we are saying we are living the lie. It's not merely that officials lie. Lying has become an organizing principle, a method of producing social facts so comprehensive that the falsehood begins to shape the policy. The law, the public perception, uninformed agents polish press releases, strategic leaks, and staged visuals substitute style for substance. The costume or the uniform of legitimacy, the badges, the insignia, the scripted prose stands in for democratic accountability. What also made me mad leading up to this shooting was I saw these officers with police on their back. They're not police. Chief Hurtado, he's police. He represents what police officers are. Police to manage and control, inspire, educate, teach what it is to be American, inspire values, and organize communities so that they can help participate in what we do. The most important policing principle that we have comes from Sir Robert Peel, where he said, people are the police and police are the people. That is a good police officer right there. I know him. I've known him for many, many years. The other was the mask. Why wear a mask if you're not going to do something wrong? Who wears a mask? Darth Vader. What does Darth Vader do? Darth Vader is an institution that serves an institution. Chief Hurtado represents an institution that serves purpose for people. Masked agents and anonymous units reduce individual responsibility to institutional alibi, aesthetics, and timing, create a sensory story that feels authoritative even when it is not. When we did use of force cases, we looked at what was the leadership message given to those officers. What were the policies and procedures given to those officers? What training did they undergo? And then what tactics did they implement? Why did they draw their weapon? And why did they use lethal force? Leadership message, deficient. Policy procedure, probably good but not followed. Training, horrible and reduced in half to what it was. The message was bad. And the use of force, the tactics and the use of force, not only out of policy, but in my view, it was illegal. There's a theatricality to this governance by fabrication that my father would have recognized. In theater, audience consent to illusion. In the federal theater, the contract is broken. The state performs a fiction and then demands that its citizens live in it. The result is social vertigo, where evidence becomes negotiable, truth provisional, dependent on whose microphone is loudest. Language is weaponized, labels like terrorist, collapse, nuance, and prime fear, legalese disguises moral choices and administrative inevitabilities. Practices justified, offshore extrajudicial strikes, summary force, creep ashore as exceptions normalize into precedent. The consequences are profound. Institutional legitimacy decays when official accounts routinely contradict verifiable evidence. Public confidence becomes performative rather than real. Shared facts shrink into partisan silos. making collective judgment and democratic deliberation nearly impossible. Legal constraints meant to check power fray under continual appeal to emergency or security. Repeated exposure to decent and violence breeds moral desensitization, outrage fatigues, and abuses persist. The personal and cultural toll is equally grave. Citizens, all of you, actually suffer cognitive dissonance. What they see clashes with what they are told, producing apathy, cynicism, and radicalization. Don't buy into it. And stay in this nonviolent resistance and struggle. They want you to be violent because they want to, in my opinion, declare the Insurrection Act so that it'll be policed by the military. Social trust fractures as people inhabit different realities and communities start to disintegrate. Don't let it happen. Culture produces media, an entertainment institution of taste and story. Risk becomes part of the lies ecosystem, blurring critique with complicity. If we are to resist living inside this falsehood, we need measures that are practical and immediate. To piggyback on what Connie said, exposure of falsehoods is necessary. We have to call it out, but not sufficient. We must rebuild the habits and institutions that anchor public life in facts and accountability. It was clear to me years, when this whole started, my greatest fear was the attack on our mature, effective institutions. Now, do those institutions need reform? All the time, continuous improvement. We always need to reform. LAPD always needs to reform as we move forward as well. And the chief acknowledges that. So where do we go from here? Demand unedited footage with timestamps and preserve chains of custody. Don't let it get corrupted. Strengthen independent oversight. Inspector generals, we need those. Independent prosecutors, we need those. Civilian review boards, we need you. And congressional checks that cannot be bypassed by an executive leader. It's from the people. This is the people's strength, and we need the people now. Protect truth infrastructure. Protect the truth tellers. Fund independent journalism. Preserve raw archives and expand whistleblower protections so evidence can surface without retribution. Reclaim the public narrative. Insist on ethical storytelling, contextual reporting, and resistance to reductionist labels that preempt inquiry. Educate citizens in media literacy and the mechanics of propaganda so the public can recognize and resist manufactured consent. Democracy depends on the rules, but on a shared commitment to reality. Reality, not fabricated theater. The conviction that words correspond to acts and power is accountable. My father taught me that stories do more than reflect the world. They shape it. He was a storyteller. In his last essay, he warned us to watch how power tells the stories. To honor him and to honor the lives like Renee Nicole Good and Alex Preddy that cannot be resolved by spin, we must reclaim the terms of reality. We must insist that governance be more than performance, that badges and titles do not substitute for accountability, and that the beauty of a staged scene never be allowed to erase the blood on the floor. That reclamation is both a civic responsibility and a moral imperative. Demand transparency, build resilient institutions, protect truth tellers, revive a culture that values corroboration over comfort. Only then can we move from living within a lie in a republic where facts matter, justice is enforceable, and life is honored by law as well as by story. Thank you.
Mike, I think you did pretty well. That was wonderful. No, that's all right. We'll make up afterwards. No, thank you, Mike. Mike has to go to another commitment. We really appreciate his time and his wisdom and taking action and, you know, this emphasis of the people's role, civilian oversight, inspector generals. There's much to do, and we'll take note of that as we move forward. Our next speaker is Victor Leang. He's Chief Legal and Advocacy Officer of the ACLU of Southern California. He led major legal challenges to federal overreach, unconstitutional immigration raids, and discriminatory enforcement practices. Victor leads the affiliate's Advocacy Legal Department, which comprises more than 50 attorneys, policy advocates, organizers, and supporter staff across offices in Los Angeles, Orange County, Inland Empire, and Kern County. Victor has also led campaigns, authored policy reports, and worked on legislation to increase resources for high-need students, ensure charter school accountability, and eliminate the school-to-prison pipeline. Please welcome Victor Leang.
Good morning, everybody. It is a true honor to be here following in the footsteps of Connie and Mike and all these faith leaders. I'm going to keep it as short as possible because I think most things have been said at this point, and we want to reserve a lot of time for the rich and robust discussion coming up. But they asked me to come up here and talk just a little bit about what is illegal about what's going on. And it's a funny question, as some of you chuckled, because the answer is very simple, and every single person in this room knows what is illegal. Everything is illegal. If you were to ask me for a list of what is legal, it would be much shorter than to ask me for a list of what is illegal. But what I'm going to try to do is run through quickly, hopefully without repeating, just a very broad overview of the gross attacks on civil liberties and civil rights that we're seeing, both from a legal and from a moral lens. And then I'm going to talk a little bit to provide some hope about what organizations like mine, like Connie's, like Mike's, are doing to combat this terrible struggle we're in. And then I'm going to conclude with what can you all do about it. And then I'm hoping to set a foundation for the rich conversation to come. Okay, so what illegality are we seeing? The most obvious trampling of civil rights is in the First Amendment context. We are seeing huge mobilizations across the Southland, across the country, some of the biggest mobilizations we've ever seen. And we're seeing a corrupt and oppressive attempt by the administration to suppress expression. We are seeing people being beaten. We're seeing by federal agents. We're seeing people being shot by rubber bullets. 2 people in Los Angeles were blinded in the last 6 months. Just protesters from ICE raids and small-scale protests being shot. We're seeing women and children here in Los Angeles being subjected to chemical weapons just for being out in the street to protest, to make their voices heard. We are seeing students being criminalized for walking out of class to exercise their civic engagement. I mean, this is their #1 weapon because they know that they're vulnerable to protest, and they're doing everything they can to suppress our speech. We're also seeing really terrible Fourth Amendment violations. So this is our protection against unconstitutional and illegal search and seizure. So here, much has been talked about Kavanaugh stops. We're seeing racial profiling, which is still unconstitutional. I'll get to that in a second, despite what you see in the news. We are seeing them arrest and search people and locations in mass raids just because of where they work, just because it's a car wash, just because there are people of color working in there, just because people are speaking Spanish. They're not being subtle about it. They're saying that is why we are choosing these locations, and those are gross violations of the Fourth Amendment. We are seeing people entering homes, a federal agent entering our own homes without judicial warrants, with no probable cause. All of this is unconstitutional. As Connie mentioned, we're seeing voting rights violations, and this is going to be the battle for the next 6 months. They are illegally securing private voter information that belongs to the states. States like Texas are willingly giving it up, and states like California are doing our best, and organizations are trying to protect our voter data to avoid it getting to the hands of the federal government. They are trying to monkey with the census to change the way people are counted, to change the way people get represented in the federal government, and also where the resources go. And then finally, in the next few months, we're seeing plans to send ICE agents and DHS agents and federal agents armed, masked, to polling sites to intimidate people from exercising their fundamental right to vote. We're seeing due process violations, people who are being detained and not getting access to attorneys, not giving them bond hearings when they are not dangerous and they've shown a commitment to this country and they've been here for 20 years. We're seeing people held in inhumane conditions, people held in the basement of federal buildings, given 1 meal a day, no access to medicine, sleeping without mattresses and without blankets for days on end. All of this is unconstitutional. We're seeing violations to our rights to privacy, facial recognition being deployed where it shouldn't be, mass surveillance, social media monitoring just for people who are dissenting. Again, all of this is unconstitutional. And then finally, we're seeing baseless attacks on DEI, which means nothing. Anything that they don't like, they label DEI, and they use that without due process to withhold funding and to extort organizations like law firms, like universities, like states themselves, state entities, just to serve their means and as a form of retaliation. And then we're seeing rampant corruption. We are seeing companies being granted mergers because they give $1 million donations or because they're willing to attend a meeting. We're seeing cryptocurrency scams run by the president and his family. And then finally, as we mentioned, illegal deployment of the military, which is, I'm not even saying the first step, maybe the 10th step towards fascism and authoritarianism. We're seeing deployments of the National Guard and Marines, actual Marines with assault rifles deployed in our streets over the past year. We're seeing illegal boat strikes off the coast of Venezuela in the Atlantic and the Pacific. We're seeing the kidnapping of foreign heads of state. And then obviously, finally, this illegal war in Iran that has taken not only lives of our own American soldiers, but 150 children already, and it's just getting started. And I say all this just to show just the breadth of illegality here. And I know that that is a difficult and sobering thing to hear in the morning, but I'm hoping to pivot into how are we all collectively responding as a Los Angeles, as a California, as a national community, moral community, to these terrible challenges. We are fighting in the courts, we are fighting the legislature, and we're fighting, most importantly, in the streets. And so in the courts, you know, our organization, ACLU, but just the whole breadth of the civil rights community has been filing lawsuits, dozens upon dozens, if not hundreds of lawsuits to protect all of our rights, all those things that I mentioned over the past year. There's 2 lawsuits I'll just highlight very quickly that we filed here in Los Angeles because LA, as we all know, was the hotbed, the focus of federal enforcement over the past year. We filed a case called Vasquez-Perdomo versus Nome, and this is the very famous case that the district court judge found the government was racially profiling people illegally and capturing people based only on the language they were speaking and the way they're working and the color of their skin. This got appealed all the way to the Supreme Court, and the thing I want to focus on here is there's a misconception out there that said the Supreme Court has now endorsed racial profiling and that is now legal to do so. They did no such thing. They disposed of that case through what's called the shadow docket, which means there's no decision and there's no precedential value. A single justice, 1 of 9, Justice Kavanaugh, was brave enough to put his name on an opinion that said that you could racially profile, but that's not the law. And in fact, he felt so much shame about it, he actually later recanted and in a different opinion pulled back his decision. I don't know where the court's going to go from here, but that case remains, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that everybody is clear that racial profiling is not the law of this land. There's a second case, LA Press Club versus Nome, that we filed to protect protester rights. And this is in the height of the raids here in Los Angeles and the community response. People were being shot at with rubber bullets, people were being tear gassed, people were being trampled, and we have a court order in place saying press and protesters are protected against that kind of suppression of First Amendment rights, and that case is now currently being appealed as well. But as Connie and others mentioned, the courts are not going to save, especially not with this Supreme Court. But it doesn't mean we don't fight, and it doesn't mean we don't try our best to slow down what's going on and create the historical record of what's happening. And if those justices want to put their names on decisions that look like the Korematsu decision or Dred Scott decision, well, then we're going to hold them accountable for that. Okay, and then the second way is through the legislature, through the California legislature specifically, because there's not a lot of hope in federal Congress. But here's where the governor, here's where our assembly people, our state senators need to do their part. And they've done some, but we all have to push them to be stronger, be more ambitious. They've passed sanctuary laws here. We're working with them to strengthen those sanctuary laws. There's lots of loopholes that you're seeing on a daily basis allowing these things to happen. We're trying to shore up our voting rights. And even where there's federal budget cuts, we're trying to get the state government, the governor and the budget folks, to supplement with California funds, because the SNAP providers, the Head Start programs, those are desperately needed in our communities, and California can do more to protect them. And then finally, in the streets, as I mentioned, those 2 No Kings rallies of the past year were the 2 largest mobilizations in US history. They're sensitive to that, despite what they want to say. They know the power is with the people, and it is up to us to not only go out ourselves and put our bodies and our lives on the line, but also get our congregations, get our family members, our friends to understand the dire situation we're in and to encourage them to go out themselves. Okay, so now what can we all do in this room? The first, the most important thing, just building on what has been said before, is do not preemptively acquiesce. That is how they win. With people not fighting, people too scared, that is what you saw from some of the law firms. As soon as they get sent a letter, they say, oh no, we're not going to fight. When the law firms that fought, the universities that fought, all won, and they are still winning in court. And that's what it takes to not let them win first. The second is we all have to know our rights. So you have to go online, our website, and many other websites, they're pretty easy to find. And not only do you need to know your rights, you need to spread that among your friends and your families and train those folks to know how to respond. So there's more to be said, but at a very high level, don't let anybody into your private space, into your home, your business, your church, without a judicial warrant. If somebody comes to your door and asks to enter, you say no. Do you have a judicial warrant? If they do, you should stand aside and let them enter, but they never do. They never do. They don't have probable cause to enter these spaces, and you have a right to stop them at your door, as we've seen in really powerful social media videos. People have stopped and protected their community members from these incursions. Don't unlock your phone. You're not required to. If they ask you for your password, do not give it to them. And then not only that, do not use Face ID or Face Unlock. Do not use your fingerprint, because they could just put it right to your face, unlock, and then go through your phone. So make sure you're protected with a password, especially if you're going out to protest. If you're stopped, this is really important. If you're stopped by ICE, if you're stopped by DHS officials, any federal agents, first ask if you're free to leave. If you are, then leave. Don't talk to them anymore and leave that area. If they say, no, you are being detained, don't answer any questions. It will be used against you and the people around you. And then ask to speak to an attorney. Those are pretty simple rules, and that will at least hopefully keep you a little bit safe. I'm going to repeat a little bit just to underscore some of the other tactics talked about, but you got to protest. That is how we're going to win. We're not going to win the legislature. We're not going to win the courts. Those things are helpful to slow things down, but we're going to win at the ballot box, and we're going to win by showing them how deeply unpopular what they're doing is. You got to write to your elected officials. You got to attend those town halls when they're not too scared to put those on. You have to let them that the Trump administration's actions are not popular and that it will cost them if they either stand aside and let these things happen, or if they, God forbid, support those actions. And you got to provide aid to your communities. Know what rapid response networks are around your region, and if you see ICE agents, if you see DHS incursions, anything like that, call and let them know the rapid response networks are really robust, really sophisticated here, and are really great at protecting our communities. And then, as Connie mentioned, contribute to organizations. There are so many organizations doing really great work. Public Counsel, Immigrant Defenders, Churla, Kresen, all these folks are in the streets doing this work on a daily basis, and they really, really need support. And then I'll close on the most effective thing that you can do, which hasn't been talked about too deeply. It is to document what is happening. That is how we are going to win, and that is what's actually going to change hearts and minds in this country. Much has been said about the murders of Renee Good and Alex Preti in Minnesota. And if they are heroes, and the people surrounding them, if they did not sacrifice and put themselves at risk by first standing right there in harm's way, recording that video, and then putting their names out there, both in the media to circulate these videos, and then also in court documents that they put themselves in an ACLU lawsuit declaring under perjury what they saw. If they didn't do that, we would still be enmeshed in the lies that they were telling us. But this administration could not withstand the truth, and that's up to all of us to document what's happening. So if you see anything that's happening, if you see any of these problems in our communities, stay a reasonable distance away, comply with federal officials, do not impede what they're doing, but record and then distribute and then stand up for your neighbors. So in closing, I'll just say, we're in a really terrible position right now. We know that. These are very trying times. But we've been in trying times before, and I know absolutely with everything in my heart that we're going to win. But the thing that we're gathered here today is we understand that this is not going to happen by itself. It is going to take some extremely hard work, extremely deep sacrifices from the people in this room to get there. And I look forward to working with you all to get there. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Victor. And you'll be the first person I call when when I come back from some foreign country and have to deal with those people. So right now we're going to have our multi-faith panel. We'll have Reverend Kirkpatrick Tyler. He's a pastor in the African Methodist Episcopal Church, currently serving as Parks Chapel AME Church in the San Fernando Valley. Jacqueline DuPont Walker, founding president of Ward Economic Development Corporation, a 35-year-old community-based, faith-centered development organization serving South Los Angeles. Narinan Khalsa, an activist and publicly represented the Sikh community for more than 40 years. He's active in the interfaith community serving in Los Angeles. I know it's going to be pretty tight here, but we'll make it work. And Rabbi Susan Goldberg, transformational spiritual leader, deeply engaged in multi-faith dialogue and social justice. She's the founder of Nefesh, an open-hearted, progressive spiritual community capturing the energy and vitality of LA's East Side. Okay. Yeah, it is tight.
Very cozy in here.
Maybe should I move this down there?
Do we go back?
Oh, I'll get in.
Yeah, probably better just.
On an angle?
There you go.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right.
The country's on the edge. You don't need to be on it.
We'll let each of you make an opening comment in response to the speakers or thoughts that you have yourself that you'd like to present in the forum. Who wants to start? Should we start with Kirkpatrick? All right, go ahead.
Oh, man. Okay. I get to start this off first. It's really a blessing to be a part of this conversation. I think my opening statement, Matthew, the 10th chapter, the 16th verse, gauges us to be wise as a serpent, harmless as a dove. And I get the feeling that we really have the harmless as a dove part nailed down. We stay in a cycle of reaction and response, and it feels impossible to get ahead of the ball, which is a part of the strategy, which is to keep us confused, to keep us in a state of angst, to keep us unorganized and always responding and reacting to the next crazy thing that comes in. I think what is important about today's gathering that we leave here with, and about the conversations that we go back to our communities with, is to say, how do we now become wise as the serpent? How do we look at what's already taken place, assess the damage that's been done today, look at what the next steps in their strategy is, right? I think it feels like we've been failing an open book test because nothing that's happened have been things that this administration did not tell us about. Now that we know that it's an open book test, now that we know where they're drawing their strategy from, the Heritage Foundation, Project 2025, let's just read a chapter ahead and begin to organize to stop. I think it was rightly said that we're caught up in these legal battles, and by the time it gets to the courts, it's too late. Let's just read a chapter ahead and then begin to develop and build our own strategy. The last thing I would say is, in our anxiety about approaching political issues, we should acknowledge that this is wickedness. And wickedness falls into our wheelhouse. Wickedness is a spiritual issue, not a political one, not a partisan one. And so because wickedness is a spiritual issue, it is the place where we have the authority. And so because wickedness is the place where we have the authority as spiritual leaders, we should take that authority and walk in it. If there are places where we're not sure, consult a lawyer, but don't allow our unreadiness or our unsuredness to stop us from taking action. Thank you for having me this morning.
It's very moving to be here, so appreciate your words. And in this place of feeling overwhelmed, I appreciated, Victor, that you acknowledged that it was morning and a lot to take in the morning. There is also incredible compassion, courage, love that we're seeing in Los Angeles and all across the country. It was not a mistake that they chose LA first. And it's a big part of the beauty of who we are. And so this is a moment that we lean into it, embrace it, love it, jump with it, dance with it, even more. That we are this gorgeously diverse city that stands in solidarity with each other. And that's why they want to come for us. And so in addition to not complying in advance, in addition to wrestling with the fear that may make us want to be quiet, there is also the cultivating, which our spiritual traditions do, through prayer, through song, through our rituals, through our holidays, cultivating the space of continued courageous, nonviolent action. And I'm looking at many of you who I see out in the streets. And part of what we need to figure out, each of us, is where is my place, right? We heard different perspectives. We heard somebody from the world of law enforcement, legal perspectives, and I just want to raise up that most of us in this room are folks who are faith leaders. And the faith community has a huge role to play. You know, we talk a lot about pillars of the society and how to respond, where people of faith have specific superpowers. We have specific role to play. We bring a moral voice. They can say all they want about why they're doing this. But when we proclaim in a multi-faith group that it is simply wrong, immoral, wicked, and that we know that the path forward is love and compassion for our neighbors, that's very clear. We speak with clarity. We have access to a lot of human beings in our congregations. We already are places equipped for organizing, right? We have people who may have some resources they want to give. So we can help direct resources. And we're great at taking care of people through mutual aid. We know how to feed people. We can provide sanctuary. And then we do amazing, I learned this new term, liturgical direct action protests. So if you are not yet involved this is the time. Time is now. If anything that you heard this morning should all be directing us to that this is the time now for everybody right where you are to get involved right where you are. So if you are not yet involved, I'll just put out a couple of ways you can as a person of faith. Clue is doing beautiful organizing. LA Voice is doing beautiful organizing. Through Clue, we have a liturgical direct action committee that's working on a lot of these ritual actions, if that's something you're interested in. There is a clergy rapid response network. So you know how there's neighborhood rapid response networks? We have a clergy rapid response network that also involves faith leaders. So if you're an active lay leader, you are also welcome. And the other place to think of is, who is my community and how am I going to help move them right now? So if you belong to a certain church or a mosque or a synagogue or your bowling club or wherever you are with other people, now is the time to be thinking, how am I going to help move my people? Because this is the moment that we are going to come forward with our beautiful, deeply held views and spiritual tradition and wisdom texts around compassion and love, and turn that into daily, consistent, relentless, and beautiful action.
First of all, Connie, you may not be religious, but that's one of the best sermons I've heard in a long time. 405,399. That's the number of brave American soldiers that fought overseas to prevent what's happening here now from coming to our shores. That discounts the thousands and thousands and thousands of the courageous other Americans that have maintained our freedom and our democracy for our 250 years. This country has a cancer. It's being eaten from the inside now. We don't have to defend against others. We have to defend against a group in this country who, as a minority, felt their issues were never put forth, so they decided the minority must take over this country. There's never a majority of people who felt this was a good idea. There's a huge religious component to this and spiritual component to this, because the foundation of what is allowing this insane administration to go forward is being provided by Christian nationalists. And it's our obligation, even as not Christian communities, but other faith communities, to take back the narrative. If you don't like certain things about society, you don't have to do them. Just because you feel that things are wrong, you can't make laws to govern other people and force them to go along with you. But back to it, we as a religious community, we must take back the narrative. Our secular champions, they'll deal with the secular and temporal part of policy and part of the politics that has become so corrupt. But the simple reality is we must face this fanaticism that has grown in our country, and we as spiritual people must defeat it.
Good morning. The joy of the Lord is my strength. The strength of the Lord is my joy. I love you. I love each one of you. I have not met you personally, but I do. The one and only Connie Rice, thank you so much, talked about the fact that we must come together. And I want to disabuse us after hearing from our lead-in presenters of the fact that we're safe here in California. We're not safe anywhere. And when she said we must write 2028, somebody should be raising their hand and their heart right now. Because we spent a lot of time analyzing what happened and what someone else wrote. And so the end product becomes the analysis, not a plan for the future. Today's presentations reaffirmed what my heart and spirit and prayer was telling me. Everyone has something to do. If something I say causes you to cross your arms literally or virtually, that's important because that means you're hearing it. It's gotten to your heart because God has called each one of us to something. In my faith tradition, which is the African Methodist Episcopal Church, we believe in the priesthood of all believers. We don't carry it out, but we believe it. I am in lay ministry, and often my voice is discounted. Right now, we're in a state where everyone's voice is being discounted. And so we must listen to whomever comes, because I believe each one of us has a calling. And it is time for us to find the calling on our life at this moment. One of the things I want to just share, a little trivia. Do we believe that we're doing the best in California to get everyone to vote? No. What can we do about it? That's the question. In preparation for coming here, I went to the voter registrar's office to pick up traditional materials, the wonderful printed literature, because some of us don't want to do digital. Do you know they had nothing prepared? I mean, zero. I literally had an adult temper tantrum to get to the 6th floor to get copies of documents that you will see on that table. They should be out in large numbers. Our primary is when? June. Nothing is there. You can tell them I told you to call every supervisor, all 5 of them, and tell them they're not getting us ready for this election. We don't know what might happen between now and then with regard to the absentee voter and whether it be in protest. But most importantly, Bishop Taylor, you said, do unto others only what you would have them do unto you. That's going to be my favorite scripture every time they ask me for scripture, because that really is what we all believe in our various faith groups. This morning, I heard on KBLA, and we want to listen to the press. That's what I heard. Listen to the people telling the truth. Thank you, Mr. Leang. It is easier to make noise now because they're taking away all of the traditional ways for us to be heard. So now we're going to go back to what I call the brush harbor moment, where we go in places where we need to be to talk to people we need to talk to come out with a strategy. But because the media that we have become accustomed to trusting, accustomed to depending on for us to communicate, is being bought up by one family. So while it may be easy for us to make noise because no one would tell us no, we can't get on the media, it would be harder to be heard because those doors are closed. The brush harbor in my culture was a time when you had to go into a secret place to talk about the plan, to come out. The right people went in. Harriet Tubman didn't take everybody in. She said even with the hundreds she saved, if they had listened, she would have saved thousands, that we can never be satisfied. But the brush harbor moment is here for each one of us, to go into the places where we have to be ready to communicate at a time when the major means of communication are cut off. This morning, I used my GPS to direct myself to the very familiar place, and I got here. As soon as I got here, my phone said I had no internet network. I was not connected to an internet network. I could only make emergency calls. The possibility of that communication through those means is going to be cut off is strong with what's happening. We must begin to talk to each other. But the real thing that was reaffirmed this morning is the analysis of what could have happened in 2024 when we are now almost in a celebratory way talking about the 90 million who didn't vote, registered voters who didn't vote. They're not struggling with whether to vote. 90 million chose not to vote. Then you say, what could have happened? I talked to several consultants last week who said, we should give up on the midterm election. We can't win it. I told them I'll be back for you because that's not the prophecy I have. We must make sure this midterm election is not controlled by consultants. It must be controlled by us. The people must speak. And then you wonder why some of the things are happening. It was also revealed to me, and we can go and look, not analysis to move forward. There were 2 states that had the highest voter turnout of all of the 50 states. What 2 do you think they were? Minnesota, who had 76%, and Wisconsin, who had 76%. Is there any coincidence that those states are now under attack? They're sending a message to those who would identify in the category of white that you will not be protected because of that. You need to understand what it means to side with those other people. You will be at risk. That's the fear and intimidation factor. For most of us who have been identified just by appearing, when you look at me, if I walked in and said, you know, I'm a white person from Ireland, you say, she's deranged, wouldn't you? She's obviously a black person from somewhere in Africa or the Caribbean. What's important for us to understand is that the identities that have separated us must now be put aside. We must take the time to communicate with each other. I've taken the time since, and I'm going to wrap this up quick, I've taken the time since the November 2024 election to go to some of the people who I think didn't vote and say, what happened? We're partially responsible. We have watched the decline in voter turnout. We've analyzed it. We've even said, okay, among parties, because we got our vote out. It has now kicked us in the butt. We must have every voter turn out. Our goal must be 100% voter turnout, and we should let no one tell us that it's impossible, because we believe in a God that can do anything. A wonderful representative of law enforcement said, our faith can move mountains. We say it, do we believe it? Do we look to go around the mountain? Our faith can move the mountain, and we must do that. So we must activate networks. One thing our church has, we talk about as if it's a disability, and that's people like me, older people. We say we have the elders, they need to turn it over. I want to introduce to you today the Granny and the GG network. Grannies can normally get the family to do whatever they need. GG can get the granny to do whatever they need. We must activate that network to match anything. I don't know about you, but in my family, if they don't do what I tell them to do, I wear them out. We must wear out everyone we can touch, not just one touch. Stay with them until they get to the polls. Stay with them until they cast their ballot. We will and can do this because God has told us it's what we have to do to get rid of evil, to get rid of all of those things, but more than anything else, to get the light of God to shine in this world. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have time to take some questions from the audience, and that includes questions to all the panelists, including Victor and Connie. We don't have enough chairs, but you can just come to the lectern if you have to respond to anything. So, Najuma. I think you have to wait for a microphone. It's okay. They want it recorded.
For the Zoom.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing. I just wanted to know if we could get access to your points that you outlined, if that is documented somewhere or if it can be emailed, so we can share that out. It was a simple question. Yes.
Okay. We will make it available.
Okay.
Thank you, panelists, for those wonderful insights and speakers as well. My question is for Dr. DuPont Walker. You were talking about voter registration. Could you clarify, too, voter verification, the difference between the two?
Thank you for bringing that up.
And Victor, also, if you want to comment.
One of the things we've been trending toward for a number of decades is voter registration, which is important because there are people who still need to be registered based upon age, moving, other kinds of criteria. But voter verification is more critical at this time. Some of us assume that when it's time to vote, when it's time to receive our ballots, they will come. In other sections of the country, they will get to the polling place and find, for some reason, their name is not there. And if there's a possibility for conditional voting, they will have it. So we're pushing this year voter verification, that even though you may think you have never missed voting, that you think everything is okay, do not take it for granted. Verify that you can vote. There are ways to do it with the QR code and digital. If you look at our banner back there, you can do it with the state and the national. And with LA County, it's lavote.gov. But we have found people who never missed a voting opportunity who cannot find their name on the roll at this time. We don't know what's going to happen with the voter ID, but take the advantage of the opportunity to verify that you can vote, that you're listed on the rolls currently.
Yeah, a great response. And I'll also just add, there is currently a ballot measure in California we are all going to vote on that will increase the voter ID laws, like the voter verification laws. And this is backed by conservative forces, backed by Elon Musk. And essentially, it's going to make it much harder for people to verify their identity at the ballot boxes. And so I would urge folks to vote no on that, but just to understand that there's very little voter fraud, almost non-existent. They're trying to fix, or quote unquote, fix problems that don't exist, but really what they're trying to do is make it much harder for people to actually vote and then to throw out ballots when people don't, their driver's license expired or their signature doesn't match precisely, even though our signature changed over time. So I just urge you to educate yourself and to try to remove the barriers for people to vote rather than to increase them.
Does it have a number, the initiative on the ballot? Okay.
Yes, government has a tendency of fixing problems that don't exist, like war. Tend to do that a lot. Yes, Constantine.
Good morning. Constantine Anthony, I'm on the Burbank City Council. Thank you for all being here, putting this together. This was fantastic. Last year, Trump's IRS sent out a letter saying that now faith leaders can endorse candidates at the pulpit. We know that they're doing that because conservative forces, people who want to bring us back, have sort of taken over the ideological space of using faith to push policy. And I don't know where that came from, but there's like this underlying American ideology that progressive movement should be devoid of faith, almost. And I've seen it happen. Last cycle, a friend of mine, Pastor Eddie, ran for LA City Council, and I had friends tell me, oh no, he needs to not say pastor, and he needs to stop talking about church and God and faith. He's running for government. And my response to that was, wait a minute, the vast majority of the founding fathers were all men of faith, but they held true to the tenet of the Age of Enlightenment where you separate faith from government. They were able to do it. Why can't we do it now? And so earlier when we talked about James Tallarico, I was so excited to see him win in the Senate primary in Texas because he ran with his faith up front. And I think that is a critical space that is open for people to be excited about. My friend Reverend Ray Huang is running for LA mayor right now. She puts her faith forward. It's fantastic. How do we engage people in that and let them understand that faith is a part of our life and should be a part of our decision-making and our morals and our ethics if we so choose?
It boils down to media. It boils down to what I said before, taking back the narrative. I don't know if you all realize this, but when Paramount buys Warner Brothers, they're going to own Paramount. David Ellison is going to own CNN, one of the few neutral, true reporting structures in this country, and we're going to be flooded even worse with the lies and the narrative that they think they are invincible now because they can lie their way out of anything that they do. And this includes corrupting the next midterm election. You must vote. We must all vote. We must encourage our friends to vote. We must realize how important this last tool of democracy we have left. But we have to attack and preempt the ways which they're going to nullify and corrupt this election. Number one. Number two, we need to be louder than they are. And right now, we're a whisper against the bullhorn. And if we don't do that, the people that are out there wanting to rise up, wanting to demonstrate, wanting to stop this, will feel that they're alone and not do it. We must let them know that there's people with you. There's people with you who will support you when you come out into the street. There's people who will stand beside you when you say this is enough. And believe me, it's so far beyond enough at this point. So how we decide to infuse our faith into this, I think that's going to develop as we go. But we're all very solid on the fact here in this room, and there's some very intelligent, brave people in this room when it comes to activism. We're all very sure that the faith component of this, except for Connie, is going to be something that we really need in this battle. In Sikhs, we have something called midi-pidi. It's called the balance of secular, temporal, and religious rule. And it's something that needs to be kept in balance that has been pushed way out of balance in this country.
So I think there's something interesting. In the 1940s, when the moral majority movement took storm, the question we're asking is, how do we infuse our faith into politics? What they did was they took politics and put it on the platform of faith. So they began to create their own playing field. In the black church, in the 60s and 70s and the 80s and 90s, the church was our epicenter for everything, really, but particularly for political power. And then as time has gone on and abuses have happened, folks have moved away from that. So I think the first part of the answer is that we have to reclaim, again, that politics is not just about what's happening in Washington or in City Hall, but it is about what's happening in the communities where our congregations are. And we should take ownership of that and then center our campuses, our spaces to say, when there is a need for the people, you can meet here. This isn't about proselytization. If you need a space to meet here. If you need a place to gather here. If there's conversations that need to be held, have them within these walls. When we talk about SNCC, when we talk about Fred Hampton, when we talk about the Black Panther movement, while all those folks weren't religious, it was religious institutions that gave safe cover. Right? The other thing about our faith institutions, they're the one thing that we still have control over, that we can amass our people power, our financial power, and our political power in a space that's safe for us. Even as we have these conversations about immigration, one of the places where folks can go and be safe is inside of the buildings of our faith communities. And so I think the answer to that is not so much figuring out how do we infuse our faith walk into the political process, but again, being reminded that politics is about people. People are the work that God has called each and every one of us to. And so anything that is impacting people, whether they are believers or not, we have the responsibility and call to create space where we can work, collaborate, learn, organize, and put things into action. And when we make ourselves available to do that, when we make our spaces available for that, it actually will answer, how do we become a stronger part of the conversation?
I want to just raise up something as somebody who is not Christian. And when you start talking about the government and religion, there is a tendency to assume that that's safe for everyone, that all we need is just faith leaders to be more involved in the government. That is not true for us. We really benefit from the separation of church and state. It's really important, and it's something that I think sometimes folks in a Christian context don't think about, because it's really important that there is that separation, because minority religious groups, as well as other groups, will be targeted in ways that are not okay. And so there's sort of two pieces. There's because the changes that they're making for religious people to endorse candidates, and the things that they're doing are trying to further a Christian hegemony, right? A white nationalist Christian takeover of our government. So we have to be clear that even if sometimes we're like, well, that might be good for religious people, it may not be good, especially for groups that are not Christian, right? So to keep that in mind in the government space. But in the cultural space, we have a lot of work to do to change the look of what does it mean to be a religious person, and not have the first thought be, oh, if you're religious and involved in politics, you're conservative, you want to go after trans people, because let me tell you, trans people are at serious, and they just woke up in Kansas, and their driver's license are no longer valid. Can you imagine waking up in the morning and you're a trans person and you are told that your driver's license is no longer valid? So we also have to remember that there are so many different things that are happening that are connected. But when we can change the culture after so many years of them working at media, working at government, to make it be clear that if you're religious, you must be conservative, that's a lot of our work. And I think that we're having a moment, everybody. It is happening. I think there's a change starting to happen to get back to see that if you are religious, that means you're compassionate and loving towards your neighbors. Not that you think you should be dominant over your neighbors. But that's going to take a lot of work for us to change that particular narrative that they've worked so hard to cultivate. But we're doing it, and we just need to be more and more vocal and forward in culture.
Let me say ditto, ditto, ditto. But I think any one of our speakers today will be able to equip you with data and information about what can and cannot be done as a 501c3. Right. And I think we spend more time talking about what we cannot do than what we can do. You can literally take your membership rolls and make them available if you want to. You can literally rent space in your building if you want to. The AME Church started with no debate about that separation of church and state. We understand we're to serve the community. I think most faith groups do. We just simply play it out differently. I'll be happy to share with you from an organization that Norman Lear and Barbara Jordan put together to defend against the moral majority, the do's and don'ts. And I think when you give that to your faith group, they will absolutely understand that some of the self-imposed restrictions are not real. But if we want to do anything, take the time to visit the campaigns of the Reverend Jesse Jackson in '84 and '88, and you can see what faith groups did and open the door to what we can do. We just have to be bold enough to get it done.
All right. Okay, we have time for one last question.
I was going to.
Oh, now 4 people raised their hands.
Sorry.
It always happens.
I was going to ask, and there's kind of a nice segue from the two folks on my right about the phrase multi-faith leaves out a lot of faiths, because I was going to talk about the fact that there are faith leaders who probably disagree with most of you, and I was curious about when faith leaders get together, or if they do, how do you talk to folks who are Christian nationalists, the evangelicals, maybe Southern Baptists? I noticed none of those faith leaders are here today. What is is there a war or a conflict going on between faith leaders over these issues?
That's a good one, and it's an important one. The truth is, a lot of those people aren't here today, not because they don't want to tell us how wrong we are, and not because we don't want to have a conversation with them. We do, and we must have a conversation with them at some point, hopefully soon. I don't know. I think that one, because you're talking about a group of people that's so fearful of recognizing other people that they might lose their own faith. I think the key to interfaith is what we found here in Los Angeles, is to be so centered and so grounded in your own faith and your own belief that it doesn't make you afraid to talk to someone from another faith, that you'll end up questioning your own faith. And that's an important thing. You know, for interfaith to work, we have to know and believe who we are. Jesus may be the only one and the only Savior for so many people. You know, Muhammad taught a spiritual lifestyle of humility and service to all. Judaism is a tribe that believes in God and believes in charity and believes in brotherhood and treating people well. Sikhs, we believe that God lives in everybody, and we recognize all faiths and all the people that I'm not mentioning. The point I'm making is we need to encourage each other to be stronger in their own foundations, and then they won't fear, and they'll be more able to listen to logic and humanity when it comes talking at their doorstep. Because when people are afraid, they hide, they lash out, and they're easily manipulated, as we see. So the answer is faith communities can communicate. We'll treasure the moment when they want to come to the table, we respecting them and them respecting us, and have a real conversation about how all faith communities can work together.
All right. Why don't we just have everybody, Jacqueline, do you want to say something, or? No? Okay, why don't we do this? We'll take the last 3 questions, but only if you keep it to 30 seconds, and then the closing comments will come from everybody. And then you're gonna, Kirkpatrick will give us the closing remarks after that for the whole session. Who had his hand up? Yes.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for speaking so eloquently and passionately. I have just a question and a suggestion, and I want your sage advice on this. On July 4th, America is celebrating its 250th anniversary. There's a group, an organization called America 250. I have mixed feelings because on the one hand, this was one of the best creations of government, but at the same time, the historical record, the original sins of slavery, what happened to Native Americans. Is it possible we could rally large groups of people, because I fear the emperor-in-chief, either in Philadelphia, where the birth of this country was, or in Washington, is going to take over this so-called celebration? Could we bring, as Dr. King, at the end of his life, the Poor People's Campaign, Reverend Barber, who we could get to rally, could we have a huge rally of multi-faith coalitions of people of color and progressive whites coming out to these 2 cities?
Okay. Go to the next person. Yeah, we need to go fast. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's give it to this person here.
Quick question. Often we frame some of these conversations to talk about inclusion, and we often also talk about the young people. The question I want to ask is, how are we actually learning about the young people on the streets so that faith leaders can do a better job at showing up, representing, and speaking truth to power? One little thing I'll add, my organization, the National LGBTQ Task Force, has a 501c3c4 guide that we did with Alliance for Justice for anyone that might be curious about those differences.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, I'm Reverend Ray Huang. I guess I have a comment and a semi-question for all of us, which is, my comment is, yes, Constantine named, I am running for mayor of Los Angeles here. And the reason I name that is because as I've been campaigning, the biggest thing, I've been leading with values, I've been leading with my faith, that love needs to be the core center of our city and guiding the principles and values and policies and laws of our city. And young people, naming young people, especially those on the streets, have been so drawn to my campaign. So many people have said, I've been hurt by religious institution, but now since I've met you and you're talking about this, I actually went to church this week. I actually went to temple this week. I'm actually looking now for a faith community. People are looking for faith in something right now. And I think I loved what Rabbi Susan said, which is we have a superpower and we have to use it. So I just wanted to name one of the most powerful moments most recently where people have been leaning in and realizing that the faith community is something they're now longing for, is when everyone showed up in Minneapolis with the recent raids to show up together in solidarity. And I will tell you that the last time I experienced that here was when Pastor Eddie Anderson and I organized faith leaders to join during the Black Lives Matter uprising shortly after George Floyd was murdered. And we had interfaith community clergy stand between the National Guard and the protesters, holding peace. I want to invite us to think about how are we organizing together in this moment as an interfaith community in our values and even in our moments of preaching and gathering and on the streets. What's that same message that we are going to lift up, and how is that going to change this? And I want to invite more organizing opportunities. I think Clue and LA Vice offer some. I want to invite us to think more.
Thank you. Jacqueline, would you like to?
Thank you for all of those, but I wanted to address your question about the younger people. I found myself spending time with the bikers and the lowriders and the other bikers, stopping. It takes more than one visit. It's dwelling. It's moving beyond transactions into relationships. And what they said is, you're listening, because often people come to tell us what they think we need to know, and they go away. We want you to hear us. And so some of the misinformation and disinformation is being dealt with. It's hard because those people got to them first. But we should not give up. So the unlikely places are the places that we need to spend some time for the young people. But I share with you out of history, Richard Allen, the founder of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, was 26 years old. He walked out. His elders followed him out, as did Absalom Jones, who became his best friend, who was in his 40s. We have a legacy that all of us can protect. The intergenerational piece is a false narrative.
Thank you.
I want to lift up this listening piece that you just said, because I think it gets to all of the questions around young people, around people of faith who are different than us or have different political beliefs than us, and especially those within our own faith traditions that have different beliefs than us. I want to lift up the work of New Ground, the folks who are here from New Ground, and the beautiful Muslim-Jewish dialogue work. And I think what you were saying, Narinjan, is what we see again and again in New Ground, is that sometimes it's easier to talk across faith than it is to talk within your own faith group. So I just want to lift up that all of us have shadow parts to our own faith traditions. And that needing to be in a place where we're willing to talk to each other is important, and that we don't shut down and say, I only want to have conversations with people who agree with me, because the soul work is inside of those places of conflict. In this place of young people is such, do you know how many high schools were walking out recently? I mean, unbelievable what LA high schoolers are doing right now, unbelievable. And they also made special requests asking clergy to come and be present so that we could be present with them as they walked out. I want to lift up, Ray, that we can go much more recent than the examples you gave with Reverend Juma and others as we stood right in front of the Marines and the National Guard day after day when they came to our city recently, that it is happening. We have the muscle in our city. We just have to keep exercising it. And the last point on the young people is it turns out, speaking of data, that when the research is done, the most active groups around political and societal change by age are people in their 20s and equally elders. So I think we have a tendency to say it's the young people, it's the young people, it's the young people. I just want to lift up that it's actually the young people and the elders. Elders are having wisdom and quite frankly, some time. When you're not like maybe tending to a whole bunch of kids or whatever it is you are in that middle time, that when you are a young person and you are an elder, there is time. So I just also want to equally lift up our elders who we really are showing up incredibly beautifully right now. Elders of faith who are out there all the time. Elders in all ways who are moving things, who are supporting, who are doing mutual aid, who are loving and caring for people. Just appreciation for our elders right now.
All right. Well, that wraps up our discussions. I want to leave you with two assignments. One is sign the declaration. I think it's in the, there's a clipboard. Okay, please sign it. Read it before you sign it. And then, and number two, there's a survey you can take to help give us feedback for the panel. I'm going to leave it to Reverend Kirkpatrick Tyler, who'll give closing reflections. You can come here. And then Dr. Lois Sprague will give the closing remarks.
Yeah, absolutely. Count me in. This is such a privilege to have the responsibility to sum up all that's been said. I come from the AME tradition, which is the oldest black denomination, but the only denomination that broke off because of social and not theological differences. That is built and developed in liberation, and not just for black folks, while that's where it's rooted, but the idea that no person should be expected to stay inside of a system that does not value them. And I think that's what we're talking about today, is how do we press and push against a system that does not value us because of our gender identity or expression, because of our political views, because of the language that we speak, or the faith that we practice, or our age, being young or old. And so with so much being said and so many brilliant voices, I just want to offer these few things that I heard. How do we approach this work? First is aid. We've heard that consistently, and I think we all agree that we cannot engage people without meeting their immediate needs. We can't expect people to show up and protest if their bellies are empty. We can't expect people to show up for our rallies if they are afraid for their own safety. And so how do each of our communities come together and make sure that the basic needs of the people are met? Before we start giving them our rhetoric, before we start proselytizing to say, are you hungry? Are you safe? Are you valued? Do you feel seen? Are you connected to the resources that you need? After we provide aid for the basic need is to engage, letting people know how much we care before they care how much we know. Oftentimes in these spaces, we become enthralled in trying to help people understand our platform or our policies or our politics, never often listening to what the people are saying that they need. And what's further is never helping to build a platform and to do capacity building so that they are empowered to meet the needs that they've identified. The next step is to educate, making sure that folks understand not just that it's important to get out and vote, but that we're able to read and understand policy and write policy when necessary, that we are able to understand not just what political party and a person who's running for elected office belongs to, but what's the work that's led them here? What are the places where they've been active? What are the things that they've done? And how does that align, not just with our faith belief, but what we believe about the human community and what we deserve in a leader? The next part is to empower. Not just to tell people to get to the polls, but giving them the tools to be educated, informed, and empowered about how they engage their vote and how they keep those who push policies and run for office accountable after they've been elected. After the votes are cast, somehow we all go back to sleep. We all go back home, oftentimes not even recognizing what the impact of the ballot measure that passed or didn't, or the person that won or lost means for us tomorrow. And so we have to begin to empower people to have the expectation that if you came and rallied for me to vote for a thing or vote for a person, the very next day after the election, you need to be communicating to me, what does that mean? All throughout California, we talked about Prop 50. We pushed people to go and turn out and vote, and then we haven't heard anything much about it afterwards. We've told our communities to know your rights, to be safe, and then we hear the chief of police say, I know you all sacrificed, I know you all have been on the front lines, but we're not going to enforce the legal battle that was won. Not only does that have an impact on what's happening in the streets, but it also pokes and deteriorates the faith of the people in the political process. And so we cannot be silent. We have to teach that we have power and educate how we exercise that power, even when the politicians and the elected officials are folks that we support. Next, we've got to organize. We've got to pull the people of the same mind and the same spirit and the same agenda into the same rooms. We all got to come together like we're doing today, but not just to hear from a few voices, but to gather together as a community to decide what our common voice is going to be, much like the statement that we'll all come together to sign. Next, we've got to build. We've got to build the mechanisms, the media mechanisms. Now that we know that the power of information is being co-opted, we've got to build the political mechanisms. Now that we see that Republicans and Democrats aren't going to save us, that we've got to come and save ourselves. We've got to make sure that we have 501c3s, 501c4s, mutual aid organizations that begin to carry out the agenda that we've set, and that when Republicans and Democrats and independents decide that they want to come into our space, that we have an agenda that we put in front of them, that if they want our support, that if they want our engagement, that they have to be in agreement and alignment with the guidelines that we've set as the people. Does this make sense so far? I want to real quick reiterate building. So much of how information is getting out to the people is outside of our control. But the power of messaging is at our fingertips. Anybody can start a YouTube channel. Anybody can start a social media thread. At this point, you could create a whole mechanism and have your own Tubi channel, or on that can show up on TV. We no longer have to trust large news organizations to create the narratives for us, but we can be our own voices within our community. The next portion is to partner. Once we've organized the folks within our communities, within our congregations, we should find other organizations like the Clues, like the LA Voices. I think it's wonderful that we send folks to them, but we've got to do some work to make sure that our people are prepared to engage when the Interfaith Solidarity Network reaches out for communities that our people are not going, and this is the first time that they're hearing, but we've been educated, empowered, so that when we all come to the table, when our communities come to the table, that they already understand what the agenda is, that they already understand what we want to walk out of the room with, and that only comes when we've educated and empowered our people and then connected them in rooms with folks who may have come from a different walk of life. But we all understand that we have the same end goal, which is justice and liberation and empowerment of the people. The last portion is to support with our time, with our talent, but also with our dollars. In this time when we are not happy with how our tax dollars are being used, I encourage each of our faith communities to find a tax attorney, find a tax expert, and let's begin to teach our people how to minimize their tax liability through donations and giving so that they can take those dollars that they would have to pay in taxes anyway and put it into the organizations that are doing the work, that are serving the people. It sounds like a wild idea, but if you've got to give the money anyway, and we get the experts that teach us how to do it so that we are legally protected, what could happen if the $2,000 that I pay in taxes goes to my faith-based organization that's doing this? What could happen if the $5,000 that my company will have to pay in taxes we're able to give to support our young adult leaders and our transition age youth leaders so that they can get engaged in this work? We have to bring more to the table than just our spiritual power. This is a time where we have to invest our time and our dollars, and we have to do it in a way that is strategic, that is safe so that we don't end up in jail later on. But most importantly, there we go, we'll call it. But most importantly, that is effective. What do we do now? We must review the playbook, take an assessment of where we are, what the damage has been, and what needs need to be addressed immediately. We have to strategize forward and quit responding and reacting. And we've got to hold our current leadership accountable to our plan and our agenda, or raise up leaders who can replace them. Raise up leaders who can replace them. The reason that we have to keep deciding between the lesser of two evils is because we have failed to introduce good. We have failed to introduce young adult leaders. We have failed to introduce senior leaders. We have failed to raise up leadership from our own congregations and our own communities. And so we keep having to take whatever they offer us because we have not offered and built up and stood up valuable, realistic alternatives. I want to leave us with these final 4 recommendations for the fight that we're in today. First of all, each one of our faith communities should establish a document evaluation clinic. We should be housing spaces where, in response to the Sync America Act, that people can go and find out, do I need to get my birth certificate? Are there document days where I can get my passport? I had a woman after a presentation that we did, and she says, well, I was married, and then I got divorced, and then I got remarried. Am I going to be able to vote? We should be pulling the ACLUs and our legal organizations into our congregations and saying, I got 50 people this Saturday that are going to come to make sure that either they are ready to vote if this passes, or that we can help them get the information and the processes started that are necessary so that they cannot be counted out at the ballot. The second thing is that our institutions should provide funding. One thing I'm grateful our bishop and her wisdom in the 5th district of the AME Church is that we are dedicating dollars to help people get their passports and their documents in process. I know that it's not legal. I know that that's a poll tax, but we've already established that these folks don't care about what's legal. And so rather than wait to be discouraged because we couldn't turn out because folks couldn't get their documents, let's put our money where our mouth is. Let's assess who in our community needs documents. Let's insist that we partner across state lines so that our seniors who may have been born in another state, 50, 60, 70 years ago, that there might have to be some additional digging, that we are proactive now to make sure that they can access those documents and it doesn't come at a material cost to them. Next, we've got to do registration drives where we make sure that people are registered. And you can do that at the end of any day of service. whether you worship on Fridays or Saturdays or Sundays or just when you wake up in the morning. Anytime that our communities are gathering, we've got to make sure that there is access to verify their voter registration. If they are not registered, to get them registered, and then that we can begin to calculate how much voting strength do we have within our respective communities. And then finally, we've got to be able to activate emergency response teams. Folks that at the drop of a time are ready to show up to make sure that people's liberties are being protected, to make sure that people have support if they need it at the polls, and if they need rides, if they need someone to help them read and understand, or in these times, if they need protection. Not that we just hope that it happens, but that we begin to mobilize our leaders and our young adults, that we begin to look at the dates and the polling places around our respective communities, and that we build a strategy so that even on the day of, if any type of funny business goes on, if anyone tries to stand in the way of somebody's liberties, that we're not panicking and trying to figure out what to do, but that we can mobilize the people because we've already talked about it. Everyone knows their role. We've put funding in place to support the need, and we make sure that we come out of this not hoping or wishing or regretting that we did not do something different. We are the people that we've been waiting for. No one is coming to save us. We don't have to do it by ourselves, but we can do it for ourselves. Thank you.
Before you leave today, we're handing out 2 small gifts for you. Let's get them handed out quickly, please. Okay. At the Gibord Center, we recognize the importance of our hearts and how much is being put on them right now. And so we're inviting you to take 2 of these beautifully carved stone hearts. Take 2 hearts. The first is to put in your pocket to remind you of your own good heart, and that our hearts need our attention. We need rest. We need friendship. We need nourishment. We need self-forgiveness, that we can't do it all. So take a heart and keep it in your pocket, and that represents your own good heart. We need some hearts up front, please. The second heart represents the good heart of those who give us the most grief. The second heart is the heart of our enemies. It represents the heart of those who make us crazy, who make us angry, who make us waste all of our energy. I spent 40 years as a psychotherapist, and if I learned one thing, it is that all behavior makes sense if you know the context. So let us remain people of compassion, enraged at the issues and the policy, but not getting caught in this cycle that is energizing of criticizing and maligning and following the false and feeling superior. We're going to waste our energy if we do that, and it is our temptation right now. Hold on to your good heart. And when I stand in front of those soldiers and those National Guard, I hold a heart and say to them, this represents your good heart. And I know you can't claim it right now. And I'm going to put it on the ground in front of you, knowing perhaps that you can't pick it up. But know that we will hold for your good heart, because truly we are all in this together. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your courage. And remember that the gold that we have is that golden rule. And everything we know from science today says that if you engage in those acts of kindness, those are the things that help to strengthen your brain and your psyche against the diseases of despair and depression. Hold on to the gold and hold on to those two hearts. Thank you.